Okay, it's Tuesday, June 28th, 2011, and I'm with Terry Baum, who's running for mayor in San Francisco. And Terry, why don't you tell us about your plan for housing in San Francisco?
Okay, there's all different ideas and all different people who need different kinds of housing. First, I want to talk about people who are homeless. At the current moment, the policy is that they have to sort of get their lives together a bit to prove that they deserve housing. That is idiotic. Human beings as a species need a place to live. That's how it is. Housing should be a right, not a privilege. And what works for people whose lives have fallen apart to the point where they can't keep a roof over their heads is supportive housing. And they've done this in other cities where people have a room that is their own in a building, let's say several stories high, and also on the ground floor of the building are all the social services that they need. And that's worked to help people get their lives together. When you get down that far, you need some help. That's how it is. And you shouldn't have to prove that you can do a little bit of something and you're really okay in order to get that help. It's just, I was homeless, not really homeless, but in Amsterdam, in between housing. I just was simply in between housing, couch surfing, not knowing where I was going to live for 3 weeks and having my house, all my stuff here and there. And I could not believe the mental disintegration that I experienced in that 3 weeks. I fell apart because I did not know where I was going to be living. And it gave me some feeling, a tiny inkling of what it must be like. We need it. It's a biological need. That's that. I also believe that all these vacant buildings, there are so many in the city, they should be squatted. Young people, radical people should just break into them. I've lived in Amsterdam a long time, 5 years. Many people lived in squatted buildings. It was not a problem. They got hooked up to utilities. Eventually, when the owner of the building was ready to do something, then something was done and those people moved out so that thing could happen. But in the meantime, which was often years, decades, people used these vacant buildings as housing, as workplaces, as art studios. And it added so much to the vibrancy of life in Amsterdam. It was really very special. So I'm totally supportive. I know there's a squatters movement growing here, and I'm completely supportive of that. Also, I want to talk about affordable housing. You know, we didn't used to have this term affordable housing. Affordable to whom? That's what I want to know. I want to get rid of that term affordable housing. A lot of times to qualify for affordable housing, you need to make $80,000 a year. That's ludicrous. What we need is low-income housing and middle-class housing and housing for artists. And we have to just take one foot and put it before the other and figure out how to do this. I've talked about potential housing for artists and squatting. There should also be artists collectives and co-housing happening. And I do believe that we could have more density in this city. I do not want any more cars in the city, but I do think that San Francisco could handle more people. And I do think we should build housing 3 stories above the businesses and commercial spaces on the main transit corridors. I say that because I had lived in Amsterdam where pretty much everything is 4 stories high. You do not need an elevator. Many people are very happy to live on the top floor, and you can have more density. This in itself would make the city more economically viable. there would be more people here.
What about cutting off, if you made more density by putting higher buildings, solving the problem with height? What about destroying all those views of all those wealthy people that live up there on those hills? How about that, Terry?
Well, I don't know, Carol. I have to, as a general principle, I'm not a big fan of really. I think we have enough great big tall buildings for people to live in. Maybe if there was really great low income housing in tall buildings, I would be very much for it, especially for artists. They have something like that in New York City, just very close to Times Square for theater artists, and it's a very exciting place to live. The living spaces are not necessarily that big, but they are really affordable to artists, and artists love to live together. Mm-hmm. So I'm really into that. I really believe 4 stories is a way to have more density without having a whole lot of height.
Okay.
That's what I want to do.
All right. Okay. Okay, so other ideas about housing?
I really think that, I'm getting tired. I think my brain, I'm realizing I'm making more.